Yeah, when I got to work that morning, the first indication I had received of Maduro being out, I opened up Twitter/X, and it's a meme. It's from Dune. It's Baron Harkonnen submerged in oil, and his head's popping out of it, but it's Trump's face superimposed over him. So much so that when I showed my manager, he's like, he's like, I don't really get it. I'm like, oh, it's Trump's face. He didn't even like recognize it was Trump at first. It looked so much like goddamn Baron Harkonnen. Uh it's and the quote is my Caracas, my Dune, aka from the movie My Arrakis, My Dune, because it is such a perfect fucking parallel to the situation. Arrakis is the spice melange uh production facility. It's a metaphor for the Middle East and oil. And that is seemingly what this comes down to. Once you boil everything down, this is a goddamn oil play. Maybe not the one you'll be expecting, though. What do you think?
So I was trying to pull it up, but I couldn't. But I'll throw a screenshot of it in there. So when I first woke up, you were the first person that I saw that texted me about Maduro getting captured, and I had two notifications about it. One was from you. One was from Kalshi. I won the big bucks because I believe I said it on the podcast a couple weeks ago. I called it, bet on it, knew it was going to happen. Actually, I didn't know that one. I was pretty unsure about, but it was worth the risk. So I made like quick 200 off of it. Starting to that was my first bet I made on there. So I'm starting to see what these prediction markets are all about here, betting on wars.
Let me hop in right there. The day before Maduro's out, a video popped up on my TikTok feed. This guy's talking about his algorithm that he made for Polymarket. And he's like, based off what our algorithm's saying, it's like, we're going Maduro out. And I'm like, holy shit, like that's crazy. And then literally the next day, it was Maduro out. Did you see the new Polymarket account that was created?
Yeah, yeah,
Like the day
that's what I thought you were
before,
gonna
they put
say.
like 40 G's on it.
Yeah, I saw some people saying it was Barron.
I could be anyone. It's like the guy.
Somebody's got some insider trading going
It's the
on in
guy
there.
in the hot dog suit. It could be anyone. Any one of us
Yeah, yeah.
could have driven the hot dog car into the side of this wall.
No, that is crazy. I mean, that's definitely one of the things we mentioned when we talk about the prediction markets is the ability for someone who's like in the military or in Trump's cabinet or just a relative or something to just get the insider info and be anonymous. Um, but so to kind of clarify, we're talking here about the if you guys haven't heard yet, we did invade Venezuela, capture Maduro. I think he's just being held in New York right now, and
And
it's
he's in Arkham Asylum with goddamn
he's
Diddy,
with
Luigi
yeah.
Mangione,
Is it
like
Ghislaine Maxwell in there?
Ghislaine Maxwell, and like four other people you've heard of. It's lit. They got the fucking gangbusters in there.
You think they're like playing poker for some smokes or something in there?
What else do you do?
Hanging out in the yard, maybe.
Yeah, pump an iron.
but um, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of a controversial topic, and we did want to dive a little deep into this one. It's viewed as a controversial topic, in my opinion, which not everyone might agree with. I don't find it very. This is one of my favorite things that Trump's done. Honestly, I think this is like like an eight birds, one stone scenario here. I think it benefits us in many different ways, benefits the United States, and the cost so far has not been much. Now, that's not to say that the cost is zero or it's going to continue to be zero. There is risks involved that we haven't seen play out all the way yet, which we could touch base on too. But overall, the immediate rewards I think are pretty heavy. That's why I wore my Trump shirt today because I wanted to show my support for the move. I think this was the right chess move. I would have done it earlier. I would have skipped the whole thing he did with Iran earlier this year, where he's bombing their nuclear sites and stuff. I would have done this first, had I been in power and known what I was doing at the time, because I think that this is much more effective. And well, I guess we'll have to wait and see, but
So
I think this is the right move.
yeah, I got 2 points here before I start going into my points. Maybe you started off, I think, saying the U.S. invades Venezuela, captures Maduro, right? And I actually had one more point to make on Polymarket. Did you see this one on Polymarket? They haven't paid out that the US has invaded Venezuela.
Yes, I did see that one,
Did you
and
get paid out for Maduro Out?
I did,
I wanted
yeah.
to ask you.
I got paid out for that one,
They haven't paid
and
out US to invade Venezuela. And
so
then
the way it
that was just another
works.
thing I wanted to bring up. Like, I don't know if I ever mentioned it, was the phrasing on these apps is pretty fucked up. And when you're doing like opinions betting like this, you have to have insanely strict guidelines as to how the how this bet will pay out. Otherwise, it's just up for interpretation city.
And usually they do. They have like an oracle, meaning like it'll say, Maduro out or U.S. invades Venezuela. That's like the title of the bet. But then if you click the details, it should say exactly what the oracle is, and you could make multiple of them. So say someone makes a bet or like generates a bet that says, U.S. to invade Venezuela, and then you click on it and you see like the oracle is CNN. So if CNN were to report that the U.S. invaded Venezuela, then that would mean that it's true, and so then you get paid out. But then somebody else can see that bet and want to make the bet, but then be like, oh no, I don't want it relying on CNN, the comedy news network. So I'm gonna make another one that's identical, only it's gonna be AP, Associated Press is gonna be the Oracle or whatever. Or some of them might have like multiple, and they can generate it however they want. So I'm guessing it was probably something like that, where whatever they picked as the Oracle either hadn't published it or might have been a bad source, or it's just
Yeah.
delayed or something. I don't know.
Now, again,
Because
but
that definitely seems like an invasion to me, I would say.
if it's not an invasion, then what do you goddamn call it? Like whatever. Another one I wanted to say, you said it benefits the US, right?
Benefits the world, and especially the US.
So that's an interesting one because, well, you said we don't know long-term ramifications, benefits. That's not even what I'm questioning in the it benefits the US. Is it justifiable to do something because it benefits you, your country?
Not always, no, but I think in this case it is, which is a good point, and I thought about that one a bit. In this case, I think it is because I don't think it only benefits the US, I think it benefits Venezuela, and I think it doesn't really hurt anyone except for the authoritarian tyrants that are
So let me
anti-democracy.
So let me hop in there then. The great Dave Smith quote I'll throw at you here. The track record for America coming in and liberating your country is about the worst thing for your country.
Very true, which is why normally is
So you're saying
which
it's
I
good
would
for
agree with.
Venezuelans, like, oh, they're fucking celebrating. Oh, here's another one. They're celebrating in the streets, right?
Many of
That's
them
what
are, yes.
that's what CNN and CBS are showing you. And like, when have we trusted those guys?
Never. Still don't. But let me explain. So, and I would agree with Dave Smith for the most part, which is why the initial thought process on this is, oh, here we go. This is more United States imperialism taking the oil. Looking into the situation, this is actually a rare case, which is why I said, oh, I would have skipped all the stuff with Iran and things like that. And not to say that we're unjustified to engage in military action with them either. I would say they're just as bad. But what we're looking at in Venezuela here, this is not, we did not go in there and capture their president. We went in there and captured an illegitimate dictator who lost the last two elections and refused to leave power, hijacked the local cartels and started using them as like a militia. Everything that the left describes as Trump is doing, he's a fascist, he's a
All right,
Nazi,
it
he's
doesn't
doing all these
matter.
things. This actually was happening, and none of the people voted for it. The people did not want it. They were being held hostage by a socialist dictator who got rid of democracy, got rid of free speech rights, started banning the media, all of the things that we as Americans are against. And so that is one, if we want to make the moral case is that there is a reason. Look, CNN wouldn't give Trump credit for anything. The fact that they're reporting it is absolutely insane. I wouldn't have guessed that, but it is the case that this has been an ongoing thing for decades, that we have been sanctioning them, playing the softball with them. Eventually we run out of sanctions because we can sanction them to death, which we did, and that's fine because Maduro doesn't mind if his people starve. So at that point, the sanctions, sanctions only work when you have a democracy. The sanctions are to punish politicians for not abiding by our rules, which is a different topic we can get into. But it only really works when you have a democracy. The point of the sanctions was, well, the people will vote out Maduro because they're sick of their economy not doing well, and then they'll get someone who will bring back, normality. and Maduro just refuses to leave. So I don't think if we want to make the moral case, I think this one is morally justified in that sense.
It doesn't really matter that Maduro's a dictator for the most part. When you're calling into question, is it okay to do something if it benefits you? Because we don't really care if you are a democracy or not.
Of course we do.
Look at Saudi Arabia. We are in for the last 40 years have been completely buddy buddy. You know what that place used to be called, Richie? Arabia. Now it's Saudi Arabia because the Saud family goddamn fucking owns it. It's a complete fucking monarchy. We don't give a single shit. We haven't tried to overthrow them. They play
I'm sure
ball
we
with.
would.
They
I'm
play
sure we
ball with.
would.
They give us
Yeah,
their
exactly.
goddamn oil.
If they stop playing ball with us, then I'm sure we would.
Yeah. So it's what do we give a shit about democracy? We really don't.
Well, we do. We definitely do, but we just it's not justified to invade Saudi Arabia and start beating them up, and it is to do it to Venezuela because of the benefits it gives to us to Venezuela. It doesn't benefit us at all to invade Saudi Arabia because Saudi Arabia is a good business partner to us. Now, if they were to cut us off and become business partners with our geopolitical enemies, then that would be a different story. In this case, it is totally justified because not only here, can I
Is
let
it
me
is
list
it
off
is
the
it right?
pros.
Is it right for Brazil to take over Venezuela, take over their oil because they say Venezuela wasn't playing ball with us, and now
It's not that they
they
weren't
are
playing.
playing ball with
No,
us?
it's not that they weren't. It's okay. It's not that Venezuela was not playing ball with us. It was that they were engaging in active attacks on our national sovereignty, and not only that was they're funding a war that's being fought against our allies in Ukraine and NATO from a hostile force in Russia. Now, this is the laughable part, and this is one of the pros. I put this as a pro because you've got a bunch of people who've got the Ukraine flag in their bio, and now they also have the Venezuelan flag in their bio, and they most likely also have the Palestinian flag in their bio, not realizing that they're playing two sides of the same war, and they're supporting both. And on two out of those three, they're supporting the anti-democratic, the anti-free market side of things. They're not supporting the actual like pro-American, pro-Western civilization side of it. So that's ridiculous on its
I
face.
understand why we did it. It's a two or three, maybe four pronged good move for us to
I've
make
got I've got nine. I've got nine.
in terms of geopolitical positioning. I'm not questioning that. I get that. The question is if anyone else does actions according to the guidelines we are portraying, we are setting a bad precedent for how you should act because we are the biggest and the baddest, and we can.
Well, that I agree with is somewhat of a risk where part of the risks on this, which we haven't seen play out yet, and Dave Smith is right about that. Every single time we've done something similar, it has ended up going wrong one way or another. And I still think that that is a risk in Venezuela as well, where it could go wrong in a couple different ways. It could lead to escalation and retaliation. That's similar to what happens in the Middle East because there isn't like if we go into like Afghanistan, say, and there's not like an Afghanistan national army we're fighting against. There's all these different tribes that operate similar to how the cartels operate. And so, yes, we take out Maduro. Does that not create the Hydra effect where we chop off one head and now we've created a bunch of warring factions? That I think is probably like the biggest risk that could happen. I don't know how that is in Venezuela. I know we've got a lot of business interests in Venezuela. By the way, the oil that we're taking, they took from us originally. That was our oil. We set up all the infrastructure, all of our companies. Then Chavez and Maduro seized it from us. So that's I think a little bit justified there. But the other thing I'm a little worried about is that Trump, by nature, takes this as a big win, which I don't blame him for. It is a big win, but just knowing how he is, I'm worried that now it's let's get the bigger win. Let's go to Colombia. Let's go and if this is going to become a cycle of this, that it could get real bad real quick. So I'm hoping that's not in the cards, but part of his whether it's a pro or a con of Trump is that he's highly unpredictable. So,
Yes, one of the things I saw, it's like when you are the global superpower, you have to toe the line between isolation and interventionism, right? Um,
yes.
but you have to toe both lines. in this case, is this like a good use of interventionism wherein it will then rein back? I've already seen talks of Cuba. I don't now you think about Trump talking about Greenland months back, a year back. That's a goddamn NATO ally right there.
Right, which is a whole different that's a whole different story.
Colombia, and then right
Colombia, fair game, I think,
if you
but
can
again,
just
and we have to keep in mind, we hang on, sorry to cut you off, but one point that I didn't emphasize enough in my original statement of why I do think it's justified is that this is a I wouldn't even say it's a country because it's not a country. It is a government system, a militia of cartels that's been hijacked by a dictator that is actively attacking the United States, and they have been for years and years and years, using fentanyl, smuggling drugs into the country, sabotaging the social fabric. This is unrestricted warfare. It's all by the playbook. The word narco-terrorist wasn't a word that somebody just made up. There's a definition for the word. That's exactly what they are. They fit the description perfectly, and that's been a thing since the mid 1800s when the British did it to China. They did the exact same thing. China's using the same playbook back on us. That's very obvious. This is a active attack on the United States. I think that is. I mean, there's been far more people killed from fentanyl in the United States, and far more people killed by the barrel of a gun by Maduro, innocent civilians who were protesting the election that he rigged, that he usurped, innocent civilians getting killed by the barrel of a gun by armed cartel militia members on orders of a dictator who refused to leave power, hundreds and hundreds of people killed. We came in, we got Maduro, and I think that there was a couple dozen armed militia members killed, and not a single civilian that I've seen has been. I don't think there's a single What am I saying? Single confirmed innocent civilian that died in the action. So sorry, I wanted to throw that out there because that's a big point of why I do think it's justified.
I I haven't seen really anyone trying to defend like the narco shit. Really, I mean, Trump not just like pardon an actual like narco like a couple weeks back or something?
That was the
And
guy in Colombia, and I bet that might be related somehow. I'm sure there was like a deal going on in there. Maybe he had
like I
his
don't know,
guys on our side or something.
maybe that is like 1/10 of the reason or something. I don't know. It's one of the marketable reasons, I guess. But like that
Well,
narco trafficking, dude. That's not what this is fucking about. Like,
no, but you asked why it's justified. It's not. I agree. It's not what it's about, but it is why it's justified.
how
Partially.
big of I, I haven't seen anyone really saying that there is a lot of narco trafficking from Venezuela. To be honest,
That's like the vast majority of it is from Venezuela and Colombia. That's the entire. It's like the trend. What do you say? Trende. I can't pronounce it. Trende Alagua or Alagua, or however you say it. And I mean, it's massive. I mean that's the entire been the entire playbook for like over a decade.
and what are they smuggling in? Coke.
Well, they're smuggling all types of drugs, but all of the drugs that come in laced with fentanyl is coming from mostly being manufactured in China or in Russia or in somewhere in the Middle East, being shipped over through the ports in Venezuela that are controlled by Maduro's cartels that then can kind of make their way through Central America and up to the United States.
And that's why we can hit Colombia too.
Yeah, I would say so. But I don't think we'll have to, and that's one of my other pros on this is I think that the way we did this, for one, okay, I think everyone
Okay,
can kind of agree.
the
I think
biggest
everyone
the
agrees
biggest pro was going to be the military side of it, right? Like
yeah, that was a pretty flawless execution, at least from what I saw.
this strikes fear into everyone. That wasn't like that
Exactly.
wasn't like Venezuelan like all right, you think about like the meme of like Afghanistan, right? It was like we drop a $2 million bomb on a $20 tent, right? That wasn't the fucking case. Like this guy lived on a goddamn military compound, military equipment that was largely made in China. And by all accounts, if it can be believed, we goddamn completely and utterly smoked it. Like
Yeah,
we,
this was similar. It kind of reminded me of the Osama bin Laden when they got him back then. That was like a similar vibe to it. Is like they came in and just got the job done. Middle of the night, caught
yeah,
him lacking.
like they literally had like they had Chinese anti-air like defenses, and apparently they were like unable to detect American planes like coming right at them. And yeah, some like the mission took like 45 minutes in total or something. I saw.
Yeah. See that so that part I think most people agree is like it was executed very good and you nailed it with it's not only just about getting Maduro, but like we've been talking about a little bit is that there's these proxy battles going on all throughout the world and optics is a big part of things nowadays with social media and with just everyone constantly online seeing everything's on video. And so I think the optics of it actually have a pretty significant role when it comes to something like Colombia or Iran or I would say even China. Um, we were discussing that China has been doing drills in the Taiwan Strait and really trying to flex their muscles as far as their ability to take Taiwan. I think we demonstrated here that we would have the military capacity to defend Taiwan, which I think they already know. But that's definitely a part of it too, is the optics. And I think these are good optics for Trump overall. Yeah, we've got people protesting that it's unjustified, but it's kind of the same thing as it's always been. That's it. I think overall, even when it comes to domestically, like politically, this is pretty big for Trump. I think this is a big win.
Yeah, well, we're gonna have to see. It's gonna take a while to see if that's a win, if this is gonna be a win or not, realistically.
Good point. Yeah, that's very true. Is we have not seen how this ends up playing out, and I think a
No.
big a big caveat to this is, do we now orchestrate a true democratic election in Venezuela? And provide them the infrastructure to do that, or however we want to do it. I mean, I know we're already providing a lot of infrastructure to the people there and stuff, and so that's looks like a good sign. But what I hope doesn't happen, which we've also done many times before, is that we just install someone. We decide, the U.S. government decides who's going to run
Well,
Venezuela. I
well,
don't think that is a good idea at all. That's a terrible idea
why did Chavez take all of the oil infrastructure from us?
because he was a communist. Well, it was really because so
Because for decades prior to that, we had installed fucking dictators there
no,
and sucked up all
absolutely
their
not
goddamn
true.
oil.
No, that's absolutely
Then why,
false. So there,
then why wasn't?
so they had they had a two-party democracy. They we did not install any government there. What we did was we invested a lot of our money into the infrastructure. It's so the oil's there. It's not like we were buying the oil, but we were buying all the infrastructure that was needed to, refine the oil and transport the oil and all that type of thing. These are like all of these multinational companies that are doing this. What happens is the oil prices tank because OPEC was this is like 80s. OPEC was formed. Saudi Arabia gets into the mix and they find oil, they start selling all their oil. And so oil prices end up tanking and the Venezuela is so heavily reliant on oil because it's all they had. It was like 90% of their economy. Then when oil prices started tanking, their economy tanked. And so now you've got a situation where most people are poor. Everyone was promised welfare benefits. A lot of people are in debt. They can't repay. So now you've got riots in the streets and you've got kind of you've got a revolution. Chavez was basically I mean, he was somewhat elected, although it was such a chaotic time that it's hard to it's hard to say like, oh, was it a legitimate election or not? But the people put him in. I mean, the people put him in as because he promised, welfare, and he said we're going to nationalize the oil, which he immediately did. He came to power because of bad economic times, um, and just people who didn't understand that nationalizing the oil is not the solution.
I Someone has lied. Some video on the internet has shockingly lied to me then, because I had seen, I think like earlier today or maybe yesterday, that we had like previously installed governments there that were just completely and utterly like coalescing with whatever we wanted, basically. So
I
then
mean, for
Chavez,
all I know, I
so
could
then
have
Chavez comes
bad
along and
info as
says
well.
like, yeah, all those like companies that are like ripping us off, like we can fucking like nationalize it and have it ourselves. I was trying to get my laptop up and running to Google that or not, but my
Yeah,
goddamn
I got
laptop's a piece of
ChatGPT.
junk.
So I mean, yeah, it says U.S. and Venezuela relationships before Chavez were largely cooperative. Doesn't really answer the question yet. Claims about direct U.S. intervention in mid 20th century Venezuela are not supported by mainstream evidence. Some fringe or inaccurate sources online claim a fictitious Operation Limpio or U.S. invasion in 1962, not corroborated. This is ChatGPT, but I mean, I think what could be said basically is that we didn't have so Venezuela is basically a fairly poor rural country that just discovers they've got black gold all over the place and have
Right.
no idea what to do with it. And I mean, I would agree that it was opportunistic capitalism that drove a bunch of foreign investment to kind of come in and take control, but it was mutually beneficial. They also did have an agreement where, I mean, they paid like an insane amount of taxes. I saw, I think it was like 50% of all their profit would go straight to the government to be redistributed to the people, plus supplying jobs. It was a mutually beneficial relationship. I mean, it wasn't by force. It was by economics, but it wasn't at gunpoint.
Yeah. One of the complaints I've seen about, you say gunpoint, complaints about this is that it's, what's that called? Like gunboat diplomacy.
Yes, yeah, it is. I mean,
Okay.
that's it's not it honestly it went beyond diplomacy. It was an act of war, basically. Um,
It is an act of war as well.
I mean, we
I
captured the man in charge and killed people in the process, so it went beyond diplomacy for sure. But I guess what would in the situation we're in, and this is actually genuine question because I'm sure there's other alternatives out there, but in the situation that we're in, as I was kind of trying to cycle through it, I could not. And this is what made me think. All right, actually, I do support this because I could not think of a better. I don't know what else we could have done. The U.S. could have done, or anyone could have done at this point, just based on our positioning. We've already. They no longer. We can't sanction them anymore because we've sanctioned them to the point where they no longer use the dollar. So they're no longer on the Fed's book. So sanctions did not work. Maduro doesn't leave. Obviously, they have oil. That oil is valuable to the global economy by because of our sanctions partially and because politically they align with all of our geopolitical rivals, but none of Europe or the United States or any of our allies. They have all of this oil that they're using to fund these wars overseas against our allies. Meanwhile, they're doing the whole narco terrorism thing, and we cannot sanction them anymore. And we can keep telling them like, "Hey, you stop it." Like let's and Biden and Obama both tried to call them to the table to make a deal both times. Dude, listen to what he did to this was in 2023. So he makes an agreement. This is 2023. The last election there was 2024 election. They make an agreement. They come to the table with the United States. Maduro says he agrees to this. It was the Biden administration's offer. We will release the sanctions. We'll open up business back so you guys can start selling us your oil. And if you're interested in our investment, we will also invest back in your country because at the time they're going through hyperinflation and they're in an economic crisis. In return, all we ask, literally all we ask, is that you do not seize our capital. You make a promise that if we invest into your country, you will not seize the capital and renationalize it. And also, you hold a free and fair election in 2024 as scheduled. And Maduro says, "Sure thing." And immediately when we did that, he seized the capital again, did not hold the free and fair election. So that's what diplomacy tried to do. So I think the next step after that is gunboat diplomacy, and then eventually throwing the guy in Arkham Asylum, I guess. But
Arkham, goddamn Arkham. No, I mean, for again, for U.S. hegemony, for our position, in global politics, it's it looks like it's a good move, right? That's why it was done, right? This isn't done as a fucking Trump power trip, right? This is a very, very calculated maneuver, right?
yes,
Like that. That's what this is. One of the weirder one of the one of the weirder things about it is that a lot of times in these maneuvers that they'll like try and sell you something on it, right? There's weapons of mass destruction there, or there's drugs there, or these guys have drugs there now, or something, right? And they've gone with like a couple of the lines. They hit on the narcos for a bit. They hit on the install democracy, get rid of a dictator bit for a bit, and then kind of like the in the presser, this was the craziest thing to me watching it. Trump gets on there and basically says like, "It's about
We
oil.
want the oil.
It's about
We want
oil.
the oil.
We're
No,
gonna
I love
sit.
that
We're
actually.
gonna send in the boys. We're gonna get their oil. We've taken control of the country. We're gonna run the country. Actually, a couple of the guys behind me might be running the country, and it's about the oil." And it's like, all right, like fucking mask off, I guess.
Dude,
Um,
that's I was having this that conversation with some guys at work and I brought up the same thing. I'm like, I love it how every other president has been like, no, we want to free the people from, we want to give them democracy. And Trump was like, nah, like we just wanted their oil. Hey, he's a straight shooter.
yeah, no, that that was pretty crazy to me. We brought it up before, but worth mentioning again. The the operation goes off without a hitch, seemingly. But the question is, well, now what? Right? What plan do we have in place for, when are they going to hold elections? Here's a quotation from our boy Ricky Rubio. Elections at this point are premature. Fuck, I didn't write down the whole quote. But he says elections are premature at this point. We can keep bombing boats, quarantine their oil, won't rule out boots on the ground, right? So the question is, what's the actual plan and what's changed?
Yeah, see, that's
There's
just
still
utter
there,
nonsense to even be threatening that because we've done that before to very like a lot of countries in the same vicinity who might have a lot of the same people or same families of the same people where we've done that exact same thing before where we just rather than doing it the right way and getting rid of like the warlord and putting in a democratically elected politician, we instead just like tried to just go overboard with it and basically just destroyed the entire country and made it so much worse. So that is I'm agreeing there. I'm saying from where we're at now, I think this looks like a good move, a good chess move if it is now reestablished in a responsible way because if not, if not, I will take back that this was a good move. If it ends up going south that way, which it
there's
very likely could.
there's a possibility we get bogged down in a quagmire here. Like,
Yeah,
what
exactly.
if people don't want you coming in? I think I saw a poll, like this was probably from like like a month or two back at this point or something. Is what percentage of Venezuelans want U.S. military intervention? And it was very low number, something like 10 or 15%. I think like would want U.S. military intervention. So I think the Venezuelan people are glad Maduro's out, but are now very apprehensive about what happens from here. What America's plan is really
Yes, with it, which they rightly
apprehensive.
should be. They should be. I would be too. Don't get me wrong. I from the people of Venezuela's perspective, it's exactly that. It's rid of meet the new boss, same as the old boss. It's okay. So they threw him out. Now what's going to happen? Are they just going to put in their own guy? I hope we don't. We shouldn't do that. We should have an actual election where the people can actually vote, and if they vote to go back to socialism, then it's no longer justified to do that again. Now we have a legitimate election. The problem with the last one was that it was illegitimate because they basically they basically um, just kind of forced people to go along with the program as if Maduro won again. But yeah, I mean, and that's left to be said. We'll see how it goes. But I think it's possible that it does go that way. But it's possible that it doesn't.
Yeah, should we not just like? Well, they had the election, right? And like, did the people like not vote for him according to the numbers? And he's like, no, fuck it, like it's still me. Or is it one of those ones where he won like 99% of the vote or whatever?
Well, the thing is that nobody knows because he had you give your here you cast your vote. Here you go, give it to Maduro. So, and like all of our intel, everyone, all the countries in NATO and the United States, the only country, so actually pretty much every country in the United Nations all said like this is not a legitimate election and we did not recognize him as the president of Venezuela. And I wrote down, you'll never guess, there was a couple countries that recognized him. Here's who recognized him.
Iran,
See if there's one,
Russia,
there's two.
China.
There's three, and then
How many
there's
more?
there's a few more, but there's like two more that we would normally think of.
Afghanistan,
No, but Syria, so pretty
Syria,
close.
um,
Cuba is one.
Cuba. Okay. Is there another big one, or is it another like small
The other
one?
one,
North Korea.
yeah, North Korea. I was
Yeah,
gonna say it's a little guy, but he's got
yeah.
some big nukes.
Who are the other ones? Who are like the one like the other like
And
two over
then
there?
there was like Turkey was one, and then there was like
Like
some of those
Cambodia.
like yeah, there was like a lot of those like kind of mid east like
Oh,
Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan and all the stands. There's a
I
couple
looked up a
stands in
pretty good
there.
list earlier. It was the like the
Colombia was the last one.
it was like the Economist Democracy Index. So it ranks like top to bottom how like much of a democracy you have basically, and the bottom like 40 of that list are pretty good. It's, they all score like less than like a 10 on like the democracy percentage.
Is it all just like Middle East and like kind of like
East like Eastern Bloc,
yeah, yeah.
African.
A lot of African countries. I know there's a bunch of stuff going on in Somalia right now too. Not the Somalian fraud that's happening here, but there's like a civil war going on in Somalia right now. And Trump, this is another kind of a crazy move. I don't want to talk too much on this one because I haven't looked too far into it. But basically, like this has been going on for so long, and all politicians have just recognized, Somalia. They've got a group of rebels, but it's the country is Somalia, and like Trump is now just like recognizing the rebels as like having their own country.
Is there?
Yeah, Somaliland it's called.
I mean that's pretty good. Um, I don't really know anything about that. I was gonna get back on Venezuela.
I really don't either. Yeah, I just saw
here's
one
here's
headline and thought it was funny.
here's a couple of points I had. All right, one funny one to start. I saw in my modern symposium notes this line: "We seized a Venezuelan oil tanker." That one's out of fucking date. That was from like a month or two ago or something. And like, holy shit,
We sure did, yeah.
we seized a Venezuelan oil tanker. It's like, oh yeah, we just oh, here's another. I gotta do this. My second favorite meme I saw after my Caracas, my Dune was it's just like a picture of Trump with this quote. It's like, a lot of people don't know this, but the South American presidentes, you can actually take them home with you. I have one El Presidente myself.
That's
Uh,
pretty good.
all right. Oh, here's one. Venezuela produces light sweet. Oh no, sorry. We produce light sweet crude oil, and then Venezuela produces heavy sour crude. Have you seen this?
No. I mean, I've seen like not this one specifically, no.
Yeah, no. So this one's just kind of an interesting point. Doesn't have like a ton to do with anything, but our industries run on heavy sour crude. That's where a lot of the oil reserves you find in like Venezuela or in the Middle East are. But the type of oil we have is actually light sweet crude. So ours is kind of like champagne, and theirs is like the diesel, basically. But our entire industry runs on their type of oil for some fucking reason.
So yeah, okay. That is pretty interesting actually. I didn't
Appar-
make this connection, but that might be, I was
apparently,
saying like how I was saying like uh how like when the oil prices all tanked, that's what part of the reason Venezuela's economy was bad. I read, now that you mentioned that, I read something. It was because it was because we discovered a way to use this different type of oil now, and so we were able to kind of like flood the market with our what was it called? Our
we got
sweet
light,
oil.
we got light sweet. The stuff that they have is heavy sour.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty
Um,
interesting.
but it's interesting. Apparently, we like all of our like stuff runs on it because that was like cheaper to do it based off of, because that was like where we were getting like all like the Middle Eastern oil and shit from, and that stuff was like so cheap before like we like discovered ours, basically like how much we had, and like actually started using it. It's just cheaper to use theirs. So it's like fuck, we like built it off of other people's oil. That fucking
Yeah.
kind of a ridiculous maneuver.
Well, we don't I'm pretty sure we export like all of our oil and then we import we don't use like any of our oil at all, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Or like
have you
barely
seen
any maybe.
have you seen something like that?
Yeah, and it's something to do with the deal. It's something to do with the petrodollar deal, is what it is. And I can't remember exactly how it works, but it's something about how we're like already kind of obligated to buy oil from all these other countries, and so we we just kind of like buy their oil and then sell them oil back, I guess. You know.
Um, all right, yeah. Another note I had written down. By the standards I mentioned earlier that this sets a bad precedent, right? By
Mhm.
the standards we are currently setting, according to Trump, Biden was an illegitimate ruler who had stolen an election. Could any country have had the right to abduct him, take him back to their country, and take control of our resources?
If they could get past our military, they sure could.
Well, all right, good lead in. That it can bring us straight into international law, right? We wanted to touch on this one. We said before. So another reason people are against this, we've listed like some of the pros. We'll get to more. I'll get some more pros at the end. I think you're like 8 pros written down or something. We'll read those out at some point.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, we already touched on quite a few of them,
yeah.
but we can knock them all out.
Another one of the cons we touched on a couple of the cons. We could get bogged down into like a quagmire. This could another turn into another goddamn Afghanistan, possibly. Um, this could lead to like further aggression in our own ambitions, really, which not incredibly justified. But
Mhm.
this is clear violations of both the Constitution and international law. Um, International law, kind of the one we wanted to talk to earlier, really only as good as whoever has the guns to enforce it, essentially. That's kind of always been the case. However, if you do believe that political power is delved from the barrel of a gun, I don't think that's a very like a American ideal. It's quite literally ripped from quotations from Chairman Mao. So
No, I think in an economic sense, like countries are basically companies that started before the actual companies did, and their main business was violence. And so, like, the reason we can have these big companies and the reason that we care about money and we can operate in the way that we do is simply because we are all part of one bigger company which has a monopoly on violence, and their job is to make money. And so the best way to make money, though, is to not start unloading the barrel of a gun on every citizen that does everything and have people all uncertain about, oh, is the government going to kill me today or what? So we make rules and we say, all right, we promise we won't use the gun on you as long as we follow these rules. And America's big thing was, and a lot of countries now, is the democracy thing, which is that the people get to have a say in who is it that gets to control those guns. So it's like it's not like it's owned by the people. Imagine the people are the shareholders, the president's the CEO, and the shareholders have the ability to oust the CEO if he's not running the company right. That's kind of the way I look at like American politics. When it comes to international law, it's a bunch of it's a cartel basically. It's a bunch of countries acting as companies trying to make laws within each other amongst each other so that they can do business together and not have to worry about the threat of war. Now, I would agree that international law doesn't really exist if there's no way to enforce it, and the way to enforce it is through the United States military, and it was the United States military who did this operation, so it's pretty much unenforceable. And at the same time, I would say this was does Venezuela's not in the club. You like you know this is like you know if all of the health insurance companies got together and they say all right we won't do this, which they're not allowed to do because that would be collusion, but countries are. And then there was one healthcare company that said, you know what, I don't want to do your rules, I'm going to go do my own thing, and they were doing all of the things that we said we're not allowed to do. Now all of a sudden they want to be protected by international law. I don't know, it doesn't. I don't know what the actual rule is, but it doesn't seem like doesn't seem like it should be that way.
I like I kind of like that analogy you were going for there. Or maybe not analogy is the right word, but it's countries agreeing to sets of rules so that you can, do business, prosper, essentially, right? That's what international law is. And if you upset the apple cart, then, like we set the international laws. So, when we say it's one way, it just kind of is that way, right? Like you're not in accordance with international law, basically, right? So then you get to, that's your justification to do whatever.
Right. And I do think it's bad though, don't get me wrong. Like I do think we should absolutely stay within those lines of the international law, especially when it comes to humanitarian laws and like Geneva Convention stuff. And the fact that we're not so much doing that anymore, um, I do think is a bad sign. I think it's a sign of the times, which is that the thing's fallen apart a little bit, and that can be blamed on 100 different things. But
We, I think I said this earlier. We didn't delve into it though. We can maybe do that now. If we do this to Greenland, completely unacceptable.
as far as I know, Greenland is not actively waging any form of hostile aggression towards us or
Right. It's
towards
it's
any of our
owned by
allies. So
Denmark,
yes,
which is part of the EU, which is like our whole thing. It's part of NATO. That's like our whole thing.
right, yeah. So that would be, I think, unjustified. I mean, what if we did it to Russia? The only difference there being is that they have an active military invading one of our allies, so it's even more justified, I would say.
Yeah, I
But
mean Russia is like pretty fucking justified, right? I mean it's Russia.
yeah,
Like
yeah. I mean, at this point, yes. But yeah, I mean, it
actively fighting Ukraine for years and clearly has their own like dictator in power that we don't subscribe to. If it's for the democracy, right? Then all right, Russia checks that fucking box.
yeah, right. And same thing with like Iran. We bombed them, and that was probably. I mean, they didn't even do anything. I mean, they did behind the scenes and stuff, but like as like an active military measure against us. They didn't really do anything. We just found that they were we had an agreement that they weren't allowed to make nukes, and we found out that they were making nukes, and so we just went and airstriked them. It's like just I mean, they broke the agreements, so I mean, I don't know. How to handle it is one thing, but to try to that's why I like the conversation we had the other day over text, which was like trying to moralize these things is always just like from the United States' perspective, and not just the United States, but all of the West, as opposed to someone like Iran or Venezuela or Russia. If that is threatened, then I would typically say that we're justified to react accordingly.
Yeah. Um, it's you said it's a sign of the times. It's it feels like a might makes right sort of scenario, doesn't it?
What do you mean by that? Just as far as like whoever it's like whoever's got the
Enforceability
bigger.
issues. Who sets the rules essentially? Is it not just us saying like, well, we kind of set the rules because we're the biggest and the baddest around? Not that that's morally good or bad.
I think so. I think it's always been that way, and not always,
Which
but
which
for the
which it
last
has.
80
I
years.
mean, we were the sole. So one thing I'm reading is I read was this is kind of a dissolution of like the post World War II world in a sort
Hmm.
of way where like the long peace is seemingly over and now it's
Yes.
going more back towards that style of politics a little bit, which is not
Yes.
politics, it's
Yes.
fucking more war.
Yeah, warfare. That's kind of I think that's the best way to put, as a sign of the times. I think for a while we didn't see things like this, and it wasn't that they weren't happening, it's just that we were using sanctions. We were using these economic tools that we had because of that whole end of history period where we militarily we already had established our dominance, and now we were locking people in economically and trying to consolidate all of these countries into our hegemony so that we could, kind of create like this global economy, which we now have. But the problem is then we started abusing that power a little too much. We sanctioned Iran into absolute turmoil to the point where no more sanction. Like we don't even let them use the dollar anymore. Same for Venezuela. Same for Russia. We start doing that. It's like when you start kicking people out of your club, then they
They
at
formed their own
first
club.
it's like yeah, at first it's like now you're an outcast, like, oh, it sucks for you. And then the next guy get kicked out. Meanwhile, we're on this power trip of like anyone who doesn't listen to me is getting kicked out of the club. And then next thing you know, their club's just as big as yours. And now they're gonna come back and kick your ass. And that's where I think we're at.
Yeah. the long peace was that may have just been like a long economic piece of the United States hegemony, basically, right? And kind of what you were just saying,
I
like
think so.
as the reason we haven't been seeing as much military action is because we were able to have economic action because we had the global economy and no one had military presence to back that up. But now we don't have sole control of the global economy. So that's why now military action is coming back in because we don't have, it's no longer a sole global superpower. Now it's buying factions.
Yeah, I think that I mean that makes perfect sense because like even in that long peace period, it's not that the United States was totally exploiting everybody and like just abusing them. I mean, we were probably getting the better end of the deal in a lot of these cases, but it was mutually beneficial for most. That's what like USAID was, and like that type of thing where it was a lot of like soft power, where it was like, hey, like we come in, we're not here to come beat you guys up. We want to do business with you. We're probably going to benefit a little more than you are, but you're going to benefit too, and everyone's going to benefit. And it was only when like a few spots where things kind of got out of control. And even when that were to happen, well, it didn't really matter. Like Iran is a perfect example. So we're doing business with Iran back in the 70s. Everything's great. We're actually like selling them weapons and stuff. We're sending over our top skilled engineers to show them how, how all these weapons work and how to build all this infrastructure. And then next thing you know, there's the Iranian Revolution and democracy gets thrown out the window. They now have an authoritarian theocracy and they're the ones with all the weapons now. And so it's like, oh shit, well, that went downhill. Similar thing happens in North Korea, so you got these little blocks. But all we had to do was say, hey, we're going to sanction anyone who trades with these people. And then the entire world, even China back in those days, they would not um, trade with them. They wouldn't trade with Iran. They would not buy the oil because we said, if you do, it's not going to be worth it. We're just going to sanction you because we controlled the conduit of transactions. Everyone had to have a bank account at the Fed. Everyone had to use Swift, which we had control. We'll sanction Swift if Swift lets we started doing all this type of stuff, and that really just it disincentivizes anyone to act out. Because if I was that one country who felt like, oh, I want to challenge the power, it's like, all right, well, I can't because no one's going to trade with me. I'm not going to be able to fund a war. I'm going to be toast. Now we sanction Russia. They're out. Not that we were getting along with them that great to begin with. And China came out of nowhere, and now they're saying, well, we don't need your bank. We could just hey, anyone who doesn't want to use their bank, come use our bank. We've got more money than them. And
Right.
so and now we're like, oh shit.
Yeah. Um, One of the things I was reading about was the fact that so not only was everyone had to trade oil, which one runs economies. That's where our dominance came from is the petrodollar. We've talked about it before, but so not only did you have to trade in our currency, which makes our currency more valuable, you have to report it to like our banking system. So we would literally see, all right, China is ordering this many barrels of oil from Iran. So not only did you like have to use our goddamn money, we saw every single thing that you are doing. So and that's part of, how we had so much fucking power for that decades long period there was we had eyes everywhere. And then, like you said,
We're the
Swift,
referee, basically.
right? Swift, I don't know what Swift stands for. People don't know, but it's basically like the banking system in which you can do like foreign exchanges, right? So previously, if you wanted to buy oil, you'd probably be using Swift foreign exchanges between countries, right? You would have your dollars, your currency, buy American dollars, spend the American dollars on oil, then the oil gets sent to you. All the while, you're getting charged fees along the way. That's where fucking JP Morgan and, Goldman and those boys are goddamn racking it in. Every single time you wanted to buy oil, you had to pay us a little fucking change on the side for it. Now, in fighting Swift, one of the things what's called Mbridge is a new foreign exchange system that BRICS countries are using. Completely bypasses our model. You don't have to use dollars. It's based off of a digital currency on the blockchain that's like a bundle of goods, I believe. It's like led by the Chinese yuan, has like other dollars of other BRICS countries in there as well. and very, very, very low transaction fees. So why would Saudi Arabia, why would China, when buying oil from Saudi Arabia, pay it in U.S. dollars? And why would they pay us 3% for it when they can use their own currency now? Part of the reason all of this is dissolving, seemingly.
Yeah, and we're really relying so yes, that's right. I had the overlords pulled up to check on SWIFT. It's Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication. So it's the pipes. It's how the money gets transferred. And one thing too, and it took me I was like so confused by this for like so long, and then it immediately like one day I was like, oh shit, now seeing something, I'm like, oh, that made perfect sense. So when we think about like, oh, everyone's like using the dollar, we're trading using dollars. Like in my head, I would picture a big stack of $100 bills coming in, you know. But then think about it, it's like, all right, obviously that's not what's happening. What's actually happening by in the digital age, by using the dollar, it means you have a bank account at a American bank, which has a bank
Yes.
account at the American Fed. So when you're saying they can monitor all the trades, it's like, well, so what would happen is, so say I'm like a company in Mexico, say, and I want to trade with a company in Saudi Arabia. Well, I would go to my bank, my Mexican commercial bank, and I would say, yeah, I want to transfer money to this Saudi Arabian oil company. And the bank would look and they'd say, we don't have an account for them. We got to go one level up. So they go to the central bank, Mexican central bank. Central bank would say, we don't have an account for that company either. We got to go one up. They go to JP Morgan. JP Morgan says, we don't have an account for them either. We got to go one up. They go to the Fed. The Fed says, oh, yeah, we got an account for them. And so really, it's just a bank account transfer. And so all the Fed would have to do is just freeze a bank account. And then an entire country's economy can be frozen. And then if other countries wanted to trade with them, they could stop that too, and they can do that by freezing Swift's bank account,
Right.
because then they can't trade through Swift anymore. And so yes, and now China has yes, like you said, they have their own version now, which seems better, and at the very least they're
It's an alternative.
offering a better. It's an alternative. If that is why I think it's all coming to fruition right now, and when we talked about before, all wars are bankers' wars. That I think
Mhm.
is the what we're seeing here.
Yeah, like advantages of Enbridge is one, you don't have to deal with the United States, which a lot of these countries don't want to anymore. Two, like the fees, dude, it's like 3% fees using Swift. That's insanely high. Like that is
Yeah,
crazy
that
fuck
is
high.
That's insane, especially because a lot of these you're talking, big shipments of oil, like, these
Billions of
that's
dollars.
millions of dollars. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
3% is huge.
there's 3% versus nearly like feeless. Like I'm sure they take like a very small fee, but like some of those cryptos are like so damn good now. It costs like almost nothing. Um,
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, they're incentivized to not charge any fees, get people on their system, get them hooked, get them, get them sold.
Instantaneous. Otherwise, it took like 3 or 4 days through Swift because, like you just said, you go from your Mexican local commercial bank, their commercial bank to the Fed to JP Morgan to our Fed, another layer back over there. Took a couple days to do these wire transfers. This is instantaneous, right? Um, it's digitized on the blockchain, right?
It's
Much, much
also, I
better.
believe, non-tamperable. Like, you can't,
Yeah,
like our banks, they could go, "Oh, yeah, oh, hang on, we're gonna print a little more money, put in here." I'm pretty sure depending on the type of, I know it's on a CBDC blockchain. Depending on exact I'm not sure on this, but, I mean, it could easily be designed to be non-tamperable, so if someone
sanction
wanted
free.
to start messing with it, yeah, sanction free, basically.
Sanction free. The US is pissed at you. All right, well, fuck you. I can use this other system that like I'm not getting sanctioned on. So a lot of benefits there. I have I have like one more funny one and then I have synthesis on this. You got anything else before we go into like the what I think of like the overarching global themes
I'll
of it?
throw these out here
Oh yeah,
just to
fill out the
see.
pros list. Yeah.
Yeah, so our cons were pretty similar. I had the only other con I'm not sure if we mentioned was just that this could, I mean, we kind of did, but I guess that's kind of what we were just talking about, but I'd be worried that this is used as now like a hearts and minds campaign for kind of neutral countries. Countries in Africa, countries in the Middle East who are kind of emerging. someone like a Turkey or like a Brazil or something like that who is kind of playing, or even Saudi Arabia, who's a little bit in the hands of China and United States, we start pulling these moves where we're like going in and capturing, capturing people and airstriking countries and stuff. It could easily be hijacked by media and even domestically and just used as like kind of a propaganda tool. America bad, China good.
Well,
China doesn't do this. America
Richie,
does,
that was one of my two synthesis questions. Does this maneuver drive Saudi Arabia and other oil rich or other resource rich nations closer or farther away from us and slash like closer to China?
Yeah, it could. It could. Definitely a risk. Definitely a risk.
It's a military show of force, which, all right, if I'm a dictator in a third world country and I'm not getting along with the United States, I'm like, that kind of fucking blows. If I'm like Saudi Arabia, who, all right, US could still come at us, I guess. They still have military dominance over us. But I am rich beyond my wildest beliefs in oil. Am I not looking for a nicer playing partner?
Right. And even it could even be that not even that Saudi Arabia stops doing business with us or that we go to some type of war with them, but it just could simply be that like if if shit really hits the fan, w- we're gonna tell Saudi Arabia stop selling China your oil or something, and it could be that they're just gonna say no. Like where we otherwise maybe could have
We've
had them as an
lost
ally where they could
we've
have,
lost our
maybe
economic
been a middleman.
we've lost our
Yeah, they could have.
economic hegemony.
Yes, and a country like that, like I don't know about Saudi Arabia specifically, but somewhat of a neutral country like that could stand to gain quite a bit if us and China or Russia went to a full scale war and they've got a bunch of oil. They're like, if they have no active reason to go to one side, they could just be the Rothschilds and hey, we'll sell you oil and you oil. That would be their incentive. If we're not going to incentivize them to take our side, they're not going to do it out because they like us, So that's definitely a partial risk. Um,
Yeah, that was your last con. I think you said you have any more pros we didn't touch on.
okay, yeah, let me run through the pros here. So we probably touched on most of these, but so for economy, broke it up in a couple categories. Economy, um, increased oil stockpile obviously helps. That's good. That's good for we talked about the Triffin dilemma and the stability of the dollar. Having actual assets to back that up, I think, is a short term solution to buy us more time to figure out a long term solution. That's good. Um, Allows for business expansion and U.S. Investment back in Venezuela. Now that is assuming that democracy is reinstalled and the country stabilized. If it ends up
That a
becoming
year
a
from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, all of that investment isn't fucking wasted.
yeah, that's making that assumption. So that one's not 100% yet. Um, and then one good one that we didn't quite talk about is that it does reduce the United States' energy dependence on geopolitical enemies. We no longer will be as reliant on buying, Saudi Arabia's oil in the case that Saudi Arabia were to side with China. So it kind of goes a little hand in hand that way. When it comes to national security, stuff like that, we talked on most of those. Yeah, we hit all those. One thing that we didn't hit, a little bit of a joke on the Democrats here, is that what we could do is we could make Venezuela a safe haven for asylum seekers, so that way the Dreamers and everyone who's coming over through the border and coming into the United States, the right wants them to stop coming here, the left wants them to find a safe place to go. We could put them in Venezuela, assuming that we have a
All right,
democratic election
here's
out.
one right back at you for that though. Are you ready to take in displaced Venezuelan immigrants?
No, that's well, we already do. We already took in 1 million of them last year when
Yeah, do you want
Maduro.
to in more that are displaced from
No, that's
occupation, possibly?
no, I'm making the opposite point. I'm saying now they can reoccupy. Now it's safe there. We came in, we saved it. The police came, so the bad guys are gone. But they're but they're kind of a joke because they're not gone, obviously. But I'm sure that they'll probably try to market it that way. Um, and if we do actually stabilize it, though, that's possible. Um, And then I think this one is just for Trump specifically. I think it was a good political move for him. I mentioned that, and the reason why is I think that it does there's no way to really combat this. Uh, it's a good political move because all of the people who have been talking, all the mainstream media has been saying Trump's in the pocket of Russia and we're pro Ukraine and, we're pro Palestine and all these things. Oh, Trump's in the pocket of Netanyahu. And so now it's like, okay, for one, that was an America First move. That was not a move on behalf of Israel or another country. That was an America First move.
Certainly
And
not
it was
Russia.
also an
Certainly
anti
not
Russia
Russia.
move.
Yeah.
That was a major anti-Russia move, and so now what you have is you've got a bunch of, the mainstream media who just last week was saying we're pro-Ukraine, and now they're waving the Venezuelan flag, and so obviously they do this all the time, but I think it's just a pretty blatant one that even the NPCs will see and be like, something doesn't seem right about this whole orange man bad thing. Um, and then last one is I think that this actually does help get the Hispanic or Latin American support behind the Trump admin or Republican Party in general. I think this is very much, at least those that are in the United States that might have fled Venezuela or Cuba, they very much seem to support this move. So I think that that's another political benefit to Trump. But yeah, that's all I got.
Um, I have a few points to touch on, I guess here. I don't even know if we've kind of been dodging around it most of the time. Um, but this is anti-Russian, 100%. This is going to cripple them in their fight against Ukraine. So Ukraine supporters rejoice. This is 100% an anti-China move. This is apparent. I didn't know this before the last day or two. China's number one probably weak point in their like entire economic machine is their dependence on foreign oil. So
Oh,
this,
really? I didn't
yeah,
know that either.
no,
I didn't get that one either.
apparently they import a shit ton of oil. I don't know if they have that much oil. So like
Damn. Yeah, I didn't think of that one. That's a good one.
they import an absolute fucking metric shit ton of it. Venezuela was one of the main providers. Um, this is we talked about the war aspect of it, like post World War II, seemingly long peace dissolving. This is seemingly maneuvering for a potential war with China, is what this really feels like. It's a twofold blow to Russia and China. Russia's current war, a hypothetical war with China. Apparently, China will require a shit ton of oil if they want to invade Taiwan. We we mentioned that over text, like it's like an incredibly perilous strait, like one of the craziest like bodies of water to cross in the entire world somehow. Um,
Mhm.
it's they will not be able to do what we just did to Venezuela there. So this is an anti-future war with China move, is what it breaks down to be. Um, the question then be one of my final questions on the topic then becomes why now? It's a question me and you can't answer that in by its own basis is why haven't we thrown Maduro out? Why haven't we taken this oil yet? Why haven't we done similar maneuvers up until this? Why was it done right at this very moment? It's and it's be I don't know why. No one can say why. It's potentially that we have some type of intelligence along the lines of China is making this maneuver in 2027, or it seems likely like this could happen at some near imminent point, because this is not a Trump megalomaniac move, I don't think. I think this is a very, very calculated geopolitical maneuver. The question being, why now? The scariest question. That's the scariest question because, like, what else is coming at this point?
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and we can't know for sure. We can have our theories, but you're right. The wisest man knows he knows nothing, and that's very obvious. Whereas like we've got we basically have access to what they want us to see through the news and what we actively seek out through, reading or searching stuff up or finding some online something. But when it comes down to like the actual intelligence not only the information they have, but the models and the algorithms that they're using to make some of these decisions. I mean, there's so many factors that goes into it that we haven't even really touched on much. There's plenty that I know exist, but I don't know anything about. And then there's probably also the unknown unknowns that I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing that even gets considered. So who knows how many there actually are, but there are a lot. And there is,
Like,
yeah, and
what type of
this isn't for no
intelligence?
reason, like you said.
What type of intelligence do we have that me and you can't even fucking fathom that we have? Because
So
we do
part
have that.
part of it, so and I know I make this case a lot. I do think a lot of it is like a technological basis of it's technological and political where and I did talk to this guy who was like a Green Beret, and he was telling me about how I was asking him about, I was trying to ask him a bunch of shit, and he was saying how there's protocol for levels of escalation, whereas like what we're talking about with these like economic wars or even like a cyber security war, maybe like these are kind of lower levels of escalation. The narco terrorism is like a kind of a slightly up but still pretty low. You've got propaganda wars. You've got all these different types of battlefields that are constantly in motion, and it's there's a lot of protocols as far as like if China does this, then we do that. It's like it's already programmed in. It's like when if we see if they do this, then we do this. It's a big chess game kind of, and so I've got to imagine that what we're seeing now is, beginning of a chess game, you move a pawn here, move a pawn here, and then eventually all the pieces are lined up. And I think what we're seeing now is where like, you sacrifice your bishop and I'm going to take him with the knight, and then the queen's coming in to get him. And then
We're
we're
in
seeing all these kind of big high optic moves coming in right now. So which does it is very scary. One that has not gotten much media attention, and I happened to stumble on it while I was looking through some of these some tech stuff, is that we just sent $11 billion worth of weapons to Taiwan 2 weeks ago, and China immediately responded by starting doing active military drills in the Taiwan Strait. That happened like just in the week leading up to Christmas. So could that have something to do with it? I would bet it might. It probably does.
yes, I had seen we had moved like more carriers into like that Pacific area, right? That like Asian Peninsula sort of location. It does seem like we are. This could be the beginning of like you brought up the chess metaphor, right? There's like what is it like the opening in chess, then there's the mid game, and then there's like the end game. Seems like we could be
Hmm.
just about at the end of the beginning, right? Like we could now start developing these pieces, like you're just saying, like now like rook takes rook or whatever. Like, all right, we just took Venezuela, right? Like, what's like their retaliatory move? What do we have planned? I also did kind of like what you were saying. This could just all be like computations of if then statements, realistically, right? Like, if we see them
I
buy
think a lot
this
of it
much
is, yeah.
amount of oil over this period of time, and if we see this type of like troop movements, then we respond with this.
Mhm. And I think that that's one thing that, and this is just kind of speculation. I can't say this for sure. I've never been in the room, but I think it seems like just from kind of reading a lot of the stories of our recent history I think that the United States is very good at that computational game. And one thing that we fail at miserably is kind of understanding the psychological game that goes with it too, where, you know, logic and rationality and computation is the chess aspect of it too. But then I think what we're bad at is that we don't understand, or we probably do understand but we just don't handle it appropriately, is that when we go in we try diplomacy and we use this framework that we have that's an economic it's based on economics, it's based on resources and protocols and you know laws, and we go into some foreign country where there's a language barrier and a culture barrier, and it is not quite it's either not communicated correctly or it's not received correctly, or it does more harm than good in the fact that they're insulted by it or they take it as an insult or something like that, where at the end of the day it is people. I mean, maybe not anymore. For a while it was people, now it might just be
Now it's
AI.
computers.
But it might just be AI communicating with AI at this point, or if not, it's getting there maybe. But
I mean,
But I don't know. I think we don't seem to do very good at that.
how long until it's all like drone armies and like robot armies fighting each other? It's like, all right, instead of like people having to die, like, all right, let's just pitched battle. Whoever's technology is better.
Well, that's what I'm guessing is probably some of that unknown info that we don't have is that, we've probably got intel that it's like, okay, yeah, China's drones are ready, or something like that. Or the
Right.
same goes, I mean, on the economic side, it's like, hey, that new cryptocurrency that China's developing, that one is actually going to be more beneficial for people for this country, and this country to abandon us and go to them. And we can see where the value is. We know why they would do that. So we need to try to make moves now before they go, like trying to stay one step ahead of it is gotta be that. And I think it's a lot based on like technology, economics. I mean, those are probably the two drivers, and they're both coming to a head right now. So it makes sense.
Yeah, and especially what we worked out with like the long peace after World War II, probably being American economic hegemony more than anything. And in the last 5 years, 5, 10 years, you've seen China really rise as an economic superpower to rival us. It, it makes total sense that this is why we're seeing more military things now.
Yeah, and then at the same time, you've got 2025 was the year of AI, and the year or two before that was like the year of crypto, and all of these kind of converging technologies, which we've had full episodes about how it's changing the economy, it's changing the military. Our big things were economy, military. Well, now they've got drones and all of these high tech weapons that ours are probably no better than China's because China seems to be ahead of us on most of these technologies. So I'm sure they're there. We're going to have humanoid robots probably pretty soon. I mean, we probably already are getting there. Cars that drive themselves, drones that fly themselves, military planes that drive themselves, probably. We've got all these different things where it's like our advantage that we had at the end of World War II was a technological one. We were the ones with the nukes, and we were the ones with the production capacity. It was an economic and a technological one, and it China and I'm sure a few others have just outpaced us in that race, and so now they're challenging what's the boxing term?
Coming
They're
for the belt.
challenging the incumbent.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're coming for the belt, and so I think that's like what we're seeing. And one thing that's a little bit hopeful, not to be like too scary about World War III and stuff, although seems likely, but World War III, I do think there's a good chance it doesn't actually, at least not in the US, reach the point of like boots on the ground, full on war like we saw in World War One, World War II. It might be more of a technological and economic war all the way through.
Yeah.
Like it might remain a Cold War. And then a victor will be decided through cold warfare rather than hot warfare.
I could kind of see
That's
like
possible.
I could kind of see China winning that way. Can you really see like us winning that way? I feel like we'd have to win like
No,
a yeah, we'd have to win militarily, right?
no, yeah, I don't think we win that way
Yeah.
unless. I mean, that's why for a while I was like I was really like beating my head against the wall, trying to like look into all the stuff that Trump was doing and stuff because it's the constant paradox of like, is this guy a genius or just an absolute idiot? But I was trying to think like when he's doing some weird stuff sometimes, and some of it did turn out to have something behind it. And other times I never figured out if there was anything behind it. But like something like the Genius Act and stuff like this, it's like, okay, I think best case scenario is like we can buy some time and maybe China runs into some trouble that just holds them back. I don't think like long term, 100 years from now, no way we're on top. 50
Yeah.
years from now, probably not. But like another 20, 25 years, and then maybe rather than a full collision and a collapse into a heap, maybe it's just kind of a transition, and then we're about the same for a while, and then, eventually maybe they're better than us. And yeah, that's, I think, very likely.
Yeah, I could see it like that first scenario you said for like a bit of optimism. Maybe this is one, with technological and economic means rather than military. I could see China kind of winning that over the course of a few more decades, just say, right? Like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
never really militarily engaged. They just keep getting even more production capacity. even more technological advancements. Like maybe they have like a really fucking good like global currency at some point that's way fucking better than the completely fake fiat currency we're dishing out right now. That seems that seems inevitable more than like possible, right? So I can kind of see that happening. One kind of hitch there is I mean I could see them, like if they do it slowly over the course of decades, I could see them kind of beating us down to the point where 30, 40, 50 years from now, we're like, all right, like we're not this global superpower anymore, right? Like we'll back off a little bit on like our positionings. That could
Yeah.
happen.
That I
It
mean,
could all
that's the
it
Ray Dalio theory there is
right, but
that
where
it's just
at a certain point, I think what we would do is probably what we're doing right at this very moment is you know what, fuck it, we're not going down without a fight, so let's fucking fight. I think that's
that maybe is just that might be what we're doing right now,
yeah,
actually, now
right.
that you
Like
mention it. That could be this.
instead of 30 years from now when you're probably gonna economically take over the world, like let's see who can win it right now.
Yeah, and I know we've already talked about this pretty thoroughly about, one thing that the scary part in that scenario for me, in all scenarios in this entire situation, I'm less scared of the World War III happening, and that's easy for me to say because I'm a privileged American with a comfortable life here, and if the war is going on, it's not happening here. If it's happening here, that's kind of scary, but even in that case, I still would probably side a little bit with, well, I want to at least I would at least fight for the some of the values that we have based on our kind of Western principles. Whereas I wouldn't want to fall to a system where, we're kind of left. It might be inevitable, whether it's China, United States, whoever. The scary part to me is the AI surveillance state kind of like, you know what I mean? I don't know how to describe it, but just like the
I
idea where it's like you no longer have a choice on what you do. You're just like your cattle, and you stay in your house and you can leave on Sundays, and here's your UBI for the week, and we're always watching you. Like I that scares the shit out of me more so
yeah.
than like war.
Well, I was going down a rabbit hole yesterday. I started writing up thoughts on like how I would form like a new government if I could. But one of the things that had popped into my mind was realistically in AI there's three outcomes I had determined for where an AI surveillance state is going. So here you go. Outcome number one is we declare a global jihad against thinking machines a la Dune. And we just say, enough is enough. Fuck it. You can't do it anymore, right? Like, no more thinking machines. Doesn't seem very likely at all to me that that's going to be the route that we take. Number two, the most likely outcome is an authoritarian use of the AI surveillance state, wherein someone owns it and uses it and they use it against everyone. That's your worst case scenario, right? That is the worst case
Yes.
scenario of these three. Number three is we accept an AI surveillance state is coming, we decentralize it, and it's used, of the people, by the people, for the people, instead of us fighting against it happening and then it happens behind the scenes and the authoritarians use it against us. We would have to basically say this is inevitable to a certain extent, because it would be really good against fighting crime, wouldn't it? Like if everything that you do was ever watched, it'd be really good against fighting crime. It would have to be used, by us in a decentralized way. And do you see any other outcomes besides those three for AI?
No, I don't think so, and I would eliminate one as well. I don't think that that's happening. I mean,
You don't
I
think
shouldn't
the
eliminate it, but I think it's highly unlikely that we do because I don't think we have a choice. I might have said this one before, but I always think of the quote from The Matrix where, like the evil machines are coming at him, like they're coming to kill him, and they're standing there waiting in their ship, and and Neo or whichever character is talking to the one guy, and he's like, these are just machines, right? Like, why can't we just turn them off? Couldn't we just turn them off? And or like how or he's asking how did it get to this point? Like we made
right?
these
Yeah.
machines. Why didn't we eventually just turn them off? And the guy was like, Well, look around you. Like, are you going to turn that machine off? That's your refrigerator. You wouldn't be able to eat. You'd die in days if you didn't have that one on. Look at that one. That's your communications device. You would die in days if you didn't have that. Like, it's like I think we're well beyond where we're like, even at AI, where there's just that short term gain, that short term pain to reach that point of like stable, safe. I don't know if that ever come. I don't think that's even possible. Maybe for a little while, but eventually, if it can be done, someone's going to do it. But when it comes to those 2 and 3 options, that is exactly what the thought process I've been thinking about is, which is that like the third one sounds ideal. The idea of decentralization has been like the word decentralization. I don't think I've ever used it up until like 2022, and I think since then I've used it like 1,000
In
times
the past like
because
6
like
months, I've been thinking that is everything.
yeah, that's like become so much more important. And the first time I ever even heard the word was first time I started looking at blockchain. So every time I hear that word, I think blockchain, and it's like, oh, it just like kind of reminds me like blockchain is a very underestimated technology, as I've said before. If we can link AI and blockchain, keep it in a decentralized way, that is like the happy ending to this whole saga that we're looking at here. And that's what I kind of hope when I say like the American values or like compared to like the communist or like authoritarian values, which to me sounds more like idea number two. That when I say like the oh yeah, like I just really hope that we keep the American values of like some form of like democracy and free markets and like freedom of speech and these type of things. I think decentralized is like the key is like that's the word that sums it all up. Is I
Yeah.
hope we stay decentralized because a
We're not
central authority
we're
with all
not
that power is
we're
to a
not
degree we are, but
decentralized right now. Like there's so much power, vested at the top. And again, one of my most favorite studies that I've seen, said it before, I'll say it again. It's the Yale did a study where if 100% of Americans supported something, had about a 30% chance of getting passed. If 0% of Americans supported something, had about a 30% chance of getting passed. If 100% of corporations wanted something passed, it had a 60% chance of getting passed. If 0% of corporations wanted something passed, it had a 0% chance of getting passed. What's the main takeaway is the American populace has an insignificant say in what laws are passed. Meaning right
I
now,
think
I don't think we don't have like a perfect democracy right now. We have a flawed democracy actually, according to this index I was on earlier. We're like ranked like 50th or something or 60th in global democracy rankings.
well, I would it definitely not perfect. I agree, but I mean, I guess not perfect and flawed are the same thing. But I think it's a little bit better than what you're saying is because the key point there is that the corporations are also democracies in themselves. So, like, if you want to buy a car, there's massive car companies, but the reason they're massive, and I've gone through this before, but like the reason they're massive because we all voted on those ones to be the big ones because we all bought the cars. And if I don't like those, I could send my money to somewhere else and buy a car from somebody else. Or I can start my own car company if I have enough money to do so. So we're not totally decentralized where every single person is equally as valuable to the other person when it comes to making decisions, but we are in a way where every person does have their own decision and their decision, like my decision is what makes other people my decision is what makes other people's decisions more valuable than mine. You know what I mean? Like my decision to keep buying my shit on Amazon is what gives Jeff Bezos more power than me. But if I didn't like what he's doing with that power to the degree that I felt like it was actually
No, right? Yeah.
oppressive or exploitative, I don't have to keep doing that. We are decentralized in that way. So, but yes, it is not perfect, obviously. I mean, I think a lot of the flaws come with like corruption, money in politics, stuff like that, where it's like, in theory, it checks out, and then people just find little loopholes and ways
Well,
to kind of do
dude,
their
it's
thing.
like all these laws are set up with good intentions for the most
Hmm.
part, and then the way those laws are like interpreted or then used can be exploited. So it's almost like a language issue in some aspects.
Yes, it
And I
is.
mean, yeah.
I think that's exactly what it is. I think the language issue is right because language is not exact enough.
Not right.
Like language is like a very like low bandwidth way of like communicating an
Right.
idea, and so it could be
It's the
manipulated. It can be
it's the poly market one. U.S. to invade
yes,
Venezuela, and people who are holding yes bets are going, well, what the fuck? If this isn't an invasion, then what's an invasion, right?
yes, exactly. But I think just the freedom to, I mean, and when I say freedom, I mean like the freedom to not get shot or jailed for doing so. It doesn't mean that not everyone's free to start a self-driving car company because not everyone has enough capital to do so. But I am free to spend the next years trying to raise the capital and do it. That is important getting back to the AI thing, like that freedom of like just having the you know, I don't even know what you would call it in that sense, but I get
Autonomy,
worried that
having
it's
choice, right?
autonomy. Yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah, yeah, autonomy. Yeah, having that autonomy is I think what might be at threat in the long run technologically, because if one person owns the AI, like you said, and then and they get to watch everything you do, and they no longer need to have an army of supporters. This is a big one too. It used to be like the person who had the power was the person who had the most support from like physically powerful people. If the military, if I want to, even back in like the Roman Empire, if I want to be Julius Caesar, well, I had to get the support of all, or Napoleon, I had to get the support of all the military. And how do I do that? I have to earn that support. I can't just declare it. I'd have to earn it. They'd have to trust me. Otherwise, they're going to rebel against me. Well, in the age of AI and robotics, I don't need to gain a bunch of support from a bunch of other humans who have to trust me. Own a bunch of, I need to own a fleet of millions of robots that are smarter and better and more powerful than all of the humans. That's a, very dystopian, like kind of
Right.
sci-fi, but in a
It's
way, it seems relevant.
yeah, it comes down to a question of ownership, basically, right? If it's owned
Yeah.
by an individual or group of individuals versus if it's owned by everyone.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's the scary part.
Yeah.
I mean,
Should we call it there, you think?
what? Yeah,
Cut out
this was
the
a good one. I like this one.
I I thought this was really good. I came in, we were having a technological issues at the beginning. I was like, I'm pretty stoked for this one. I've been reading a bunch of shit about it, and I thought that was a very good discussion. And I was gonna text you earlier, like, oh, give me a pro Venezuela invasion podcast I can listen to real quick. Cause I'd seen mostly anti. Listened to like 10 minutes of Ben Shapiro. I had to turn that off. But
Yeah, same. I so did I. I haven't listened to him in a while. I used to like all the time, and he's just gotten way too like he's the new Fox News basically.
yeah, like I I had to turn that one off pretty quickly. But I didn't see many videos at all getting to the what I thought the heart of it, which we got to, which was like the China of it all, more so than anything, about the fact that this is global positioning for a potential battle with them. And people are gonna, like we talked about, people are gonna decry like, oh my god, Trump didn't go to Congress to do this. It's like, what made you think up until the entire time you've seen Trump president that Trump was going to go fucking ask Congress to do this or not, right? Like, but
I mean, I kind of
that's why I like
agree
the
with
talks
what
that
they're
we have.
saying a little bit. The Congress, just like I get what they're saying a little bit. Like it is kind of like the thing. The Congress is supposed to do the wars and stuff. But I mean, it's I don't want to sound like I'm like a Trump like dick rat in here, but I do kind of get why you need a guy like that in certain times, because where we're at in American politics, it's like, does the job ever get done? It's, I guess, I don't know. I feel like Congress would have supported anyway. They're all Trump supporters. But sorry,
Yep.
God.
I don't know. That's all I got. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Yep. Thanks for tuning in, guys.